Now, let me show you how to analyze some data that were collected from students in a monitoring and evaluation project in which students were asked some cool and beautiful questions regarding what they feel concerning the educational program they were going through at the time of the interview. So as I have said in my previous videos, one of the first things, actually the first thing you need to do to analyze data in Rstudio, you will need to set working directory. And as you can see, the function for setting working directory is set wd, and this is the file location. So to set working directory, I simply need to run this highlighted code. So this has set our working directory. Next thing we need to do is to call the data into R. And to call data into R is simply to use the read.csv function. Of course, we will assign a variable name to the table we're creating, and the source data is a CSV file which is found in this particular file location that we set our working directory to, and the name of that file is student survey.csv. And when we run that, the data has now been invited or imported into Rstudio. To be sure, if you have done that, you will need to view your data, but you can as well print. However, I'm interested in viewing, so when I click on the run button, you can see the data. There are only 12 entries and 2 categories of students in terms of their grades: students from grade 6 and those from grade 7. And we have boys as well as girls. Then in total, we have 10 items that the students were surveyed of all. Right, so let me just remove this now. I don't need this. All right, so the first thing I will need to do is to create a mean that will calculate the mean for all these 10 items from item 1 down to item 10. It will calculate the row means for the items across all the way through the rows. All right, then to do that, the column where we will impute our data in is going to be named mean all. And if you recall from my previous videos, to create a column, you simply type the name of your data and then you introduce the $sign and then the name of the column you are creating. Now we're using the row means function. Then we'll call our data and also introduce a form of a data frame function, which is the C function, to calculate our data. So to do that, you simply just type this code and then you run. When you run that, if you go over to our data now, if you view all over again, you will see that a mean all column has been calculated. Beautiful. Now let's say that you are also interested in calculating the mean for the boys only and leaving the girls. You will have to set the grouping variable to gender. And to do that, you can do it through 2 ways, using the dplyr function, but you can of course the dplyr library, but you can also just use this particular code that you have here to do that. And so the column we're creating is mean for boys, and then we will calculate the row means all over through students survey data, and that will be calculating, that will be based upon where gender, that is where the column inside this data is equal to boy, for all the columns that we have right over here. So when you first run this code, you will have calculated, perform the calculation and creating a column called mean boys, and this will be outside of your original data frame. It is at this point that you will now say, okay, we'll now go over now to your original data, which is student survey, and then you create a column. That column is, it will be an empty column, and you fill it with NA, as you can see over here. So when we run that, you could go back over to view our data again. When that is done, you can see that a column has been created, and it is called boy means. Alright, so the boy mean that we created earlier and that we set aside will now be merged. It will now be merged into our main data frame. And to do that, this is the code to use. So we are filling the mean boys with the values that we got in our mean boys, where gender was equal to boy. If you do view again, just view again now, you see that the boy means has now been filled with values, and where the value is a girl, those are still left out and replaced, left out as NAs. Now we can also do the same for girls, right? This is just to fumble with data and play around with the code. Exactly what we did for boys, so we're going to do here, and that is done. Then the next is to create a column in our original data filled with NAs. That is done. And then in the original data set, we merge the column that was created for girls into it. When that is done, I think at this point I should enter our view is capital letters, instead of student survey. And when we do that and we run the code, what we're going to see is that the column has been created filled with NA, but the portion of it that is for girls, that was also filled up with the exact and the relevant figures. Next, we will need to now summarize this course based on boys and girls, and to do that we will need to call the dplyr library. So when we call the dplyr library, give it a few seconds and allow it to perform come up, then we'll create a summary table which we call summary boys and girls. So of course, to use the dplyr library, we first have the data, which is this. Then we enter this this particular symbol, and then we group by gender. Then of course we're introducing another line of code. It's this function is usually, this symbol is usually introduced whenever we are going to have another line of code still be part of the code that we're having. Then we have group by gender, then summarize. This is where the table is actually summarized. So the first column under the summarized table will be called frequency, and that will give you the number of values that we have. Alright, so then the second column is mean value, and that will perform the mean using mean all, alright, and group based on gender. So when we run this code and that is done, when we view that, we could now we can see that we have gender. Boys is they are 9 number, and this is their mean value. Girls, they are 3 number, this is their mean value. Okay, so that same thing that we did for boys and girls, we can also do that for based on grades. So let me just correct this portion of it. So same thing, the only thing that is different now is that we're now grouping by grade, as you can see here. Now when we run the same code, we will now have a table created, and when we view that, we also will have the students have now been grouped into two based on grades. Of course, I mentioned earlier that we have two grades, grade 6 students and grade 7 students. Where there are 10 students in grade 6, their mean was 4.32, and the 2 students in grade 7, their mean was found to be 3.95. So guys, I want to thank you so much for spending time with me. If this is the first time you have encountered my channel, I'd like you to hit the subscribe button, like this video, leave me a comment where you need to, and ask me any question if you have any question to ask. And please share this video with your friends and invite them to come with us or come with me so that we can all learn our data analysis in Rstudio together. I must tell you, this is a very lucrative tech skill that you can learn in this particular day and time that we live in. Thank you very much for watching, and see you on the next video. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.